All right, welcome back, guys. Welcome back to another book study that I am doing on the nutritional destruction of the melanated race. And again, I've had other videos that I've made, but I had to delete them. And I told you guys the reason of the last video is because YouTube was onto me, and because I had said certain things about certain medical practices that I'm not going to get into. I'm not even going to divulge the details here because I know if I do that, I can accidentally end up saying something that can get me banned, because they said if I have one more strike, I'll be banned off of YouTube because I've said things about the medical policy, about I've done things or said things, not done things, but I've said things that have violated their medical policy. So they deem me to be someone that's dangerous, I guess, because my speech isn't necessarily free. It comes at a cost. So if I'm going to talk about certain things, I have to be very careful. So because of that, I had to kind of like go through my my videos, and I start to just delete anything that seemed as if it would be interpreted as hate. So I did that out of precaution. I took cautionary measures to make sure that my channel stayed up, and I'm still here. I came back. I was in YouTube prison for about 2 weeks, and I'm back. So this is this is a book review. This is not my thoughts. This is not me. I'm just reading and explaining what the author said. Again, this is a book review, YouTube. I am just reading and giving my commentary on what the author said. Okay, so I'm going to begin for where I stopped at last time. If you want to know what I talked about last time, you would have to go look back at the other video previous to this. And I don't remember what the title was. I believe the title was called, what did I call it? Oh, I called it Eating to Die. Welcome to the systematic nutritional destruction of the melanated race. That was the title of the other video. You'll see it on my page, on my channel. All right, here we go. African peoples everywhere, and we can substitute the word African with melanated people, because again, I say this all the time. Every time I see the word African in this book, I'm going to say melanated. Why am I doing that? I'm doing that because I don't believe that all melanated people came from Africa. I believe that melanated people were all over the planet. So a lot of the times here, you'll see me say melanated peoples. And sometimes if I accidentally say African people, just keep that in your mind that I really mean melanated people. Okay? All right, so melanated peoples everywhere must eat natural foods to be healthy. Okay, and this is very important of why it's very significant and very important, because we are closer to being natural. We are naturally human, H-U-E, human, men of light, not color skin being light, because we get the idea that anything that's white is better and everything that's dark is evil and bad. No, we are people of light because our biochemistry is enhanced and accentuated by the elements of the sun, the photons that we receive from the sun through our epidermis, through our retina, because 40% of UV light is received through the retina. That's why it's very important to sun gaze, because it activates the euromelanin in the third or fourth ventricle of your brain. It's very important that you get the sun. The sun accentuates us. So wouldn't it be important to eat foods that are energized by the same sun that energizes your biochemistry? So fruits and vegetables, they have to thrive underneath the sun. We thrive underneath the sun. So plants, vegetables, and fruits, and melanated people, we're very alike. There's a difference. There's a different element that we have that's different from what plants have. And that's what gives them the green color, and that's what gives us our copper color. And I believe it's magnesium. I had to don't quote me on that. I have to do my research on that again. It's been a long time since I read that book, but I think it's magnesium or something to that effect. Magnesium. One of us, the plants or us, has that, which makes our skin more copper colored and makes the skin of fruits or certain vegetables green. Yeah. So it's important that we eat natural foods, because again, the things that energizes us energizes the foods. If we eat the foods that are energized by the photons of the sun, all right, commingling with the microbiome or the soil, what do you think that's going to do to us? It's going to accentuate us. Not just make you look good, it'll make you think better. See, we're so fixated on eating healthy to look a certain way. The physical outlook, the external outlook, is just an indicator of what's going on internally inside you. If you look good outwardly, it also means you look good inwardly. And if you look good inwardly, it also means that you're thinking to your highest capacity. Many of our people lack the ability to think critically. Our attention spans are as short as fish. We can't focus. We can't concentrate. We're stimulated. We're still operating off of our amygdala. Many adults are still operating off their amygdala, meaning that the reptilian brain. We operate off of our emotions. That's why news coverage could get us moved, especially when they're race baiting us, using things about race. We get all excited. We can't sit back and absorb something and patiently dissect the information and think critically to come out with a solid conclusion about something. We're usually led by our emotions. It isn't until we kind of look back and we start to think, oh man, maybe I was taken for a spin there. Maybe I was fooled there. Yeah, you probably were. Okay? So, melanated peoples everywhere must eat natural foods to be healthy. Okay? Caucasians are the ones producing these natural foods for other Caucasians to eat, because a Caucasian with a natural foods diet is still a white racist. That's what the author says. It is the natural foods industry that believes that they will always be in control of the natural foods, and Africans and melanated peoples will always be consumers, never producers. So they've dominated the market. The European has dominated the food market. The food industry is dominated by them. They've taken natural foods and they supply the natural foods. Okay? They're the producers and we are the consumers. When I say we, I'm generally speaking here. So melanated people will always be consumers, never producers. In the past, the Caucasians have had control over health food movements and perverted them. For example, Dr. Kellogg. I remember you guys remember Kellogg Frosted Flakes. Remember that? Okay, so Dr. Kellogg was a pioneer in the health food industry. For example, Dr. Kellogg was I'm reading the same line again. Let me start it over. For example, Dr. Kellogg was a pioneer in the health food industry. He started the use of fibrose and nutritionally rich whole cornflakes. So he started the use of fibrose and nutritionally rich whole cornflakes. Today, it's much different. Fibrose means fiber. That's where you get that from, because the fiber is what makes the carbs. That's what helps your glycemic index. That's what actually keeps you healthy, is the fiber. It's not so much the carbs, because carbs gets converted into sugar, gets converted into fat. It jacks up your insulin and stuff like that. So anyway, it says that back then, Dr. Kellogg, he started the use of fibrose and nutritionally rich whole cornflakes with fiber in them. Now we're going to move forward, fast forward. He started the use, today, Kellogg cornflakes are a junk food. There are more nutrients and fiber in the box than the flake. So nutrients, you get your nutrients from fiber. That's why if you're eating an apple, it's good to eat the skin. If you're eating a cucumber, eat the skin with the cucumber. The skin is healthy. Okay? He's talking about Dr. Kellogg performed many surgical removals of part of the colon to adapt to junk food. Dr. Graham started the use of nutritionally rich and fibrose cracked whole wheat crackers. Today, his graham crackers are junk food. One of the early Caucasian health food movements, only the mealtime salad remains. So he's showing you how health foods are perverted. Even when the health food is processed to a degree and it's infused with fibers, and they're relatively trying to keep it healthy, there's some reason, and I said this on my last video, I can't understand it, and as a melanated person, I'm not going to try to understand it. I just know it's just part of their DNA. It's part of their DNA to corrupt nature. It just is. There's no explanation. There's no way of looking at it. There's no other way to look at it. You guys can say it's for profit. It's deeper than for profit. I think the profit is just the icing on the cake to just make them feel comfortable about what they're doing. It justifies their evil. But I just think that these people are wired, these Europeans are wired to go against things of nature. They're wired to go against us because we are one with nature. We are more akin to nature. We're more closely aligned to nature because we're closely aligned to the plants and the veggies and the sun. All those are natural elements of the earth. And for some reason, they do not like things that are healthy or natural. They find a way to pervert it. I can understand it, and I'm not going to try to because it's going to drive me insane. All I can do is say that they hate nature. That's all I can say. Of one of the early Caucasian health food movements, only the mealtime salad remains. It is reduced to junk food with synthetic salad dressing. So a lot of you guys know I'm eating a salad. Once you pour the dressing on it, you might as well just throw the salad in the garbage. You might as well just go to the fast food joint and just eat your hamburger. Oh, I ate a salad today. So what? Do you know what's in that dressing? Look at the ingredients on the dressing. And if you don't believe me, do your own. I'm not going to tell you. Turn to the back. When you get those dressing packs, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They come in these little plastic bags, right? Turn to the back. Look at the ingredients. Get your phone. Get your smartphone device. Type in the ingredients in Google. Because most of you guys won't be able to pronounce them. Type them in Google and look at what they are. And ask Google, is this healthy for my organs? And it'll tell you. See, we are in an age of information. If you want to know, you can know. It just takes a little bit of time and effort to actually figure out what you're putting inside your body. And once you know better, you have to do better. No longer can we wallow in the mire of ignorance and expect to just come out, okay, I'm just going to pray over my food and hopefully God blesses it. You're an idiot. God's not blessing toxicity. We were created with a brain to use it and to actually understand what we put inside of our damn bodies. The Caucasian health food movements usually ruin themselves. They eat health foods in order to run from diseases, not because it is part of their spirituality. So, again, the author is diving deep here. And when I read this initially, when I read this book my first time, I was like, wow, like that convicted me because I was eating in a way to ward off diseases because I understood that. Don't get me wrong. Eating healthy does help ward off diseases. It does. That's a benefit of it. Because if you are well spiritually, you will be well physically. I made a video a couple of months back, and some guy was hitting back at me very hard. He was very, very against what I said. He called me a racist. He called me all sorts of stuff. He was more so like, how could you say someone is sick because they're sick spiritually? But I said those concepts are interchangeable. An alcoholic is an alcoholic because they were first sick spiritually. Being an alcoholic is just a symptom of your spiritual illness. If you become an addict to anything, it's because you're spiritually ill. Spiritual illness, you can't see spiritual illness, but you can see it manifest itself in the physical. The spirit and the physical are one, folks. Like I said, if you eat healthy and you start to look good outwardly, it means you look good inwardly, but no one could rip you apart and see your insides. The telling trait, the telling attribute about someone's insides is how they reason. If you reason properly, the spirit of a person is the energy within you that's not seen outside of you. Good energy means you're sleeping right. You're thinking correctly. You have the energy, the right energy. You have great intuition. All right. All those things that we overlook because now we just depend on television to give us our information. We depend on mainstream media to feed us information. We depend on the American restaurants to feed us. We depend on churches, buildings to give us our spirituality. We go out to seek these things when all of it is inside us. If you reason properly, you can start to see the manipulation and the deceptions that are all around us. You can easily see that. But if you don't think correctly, then it's a moot point. You become a prey to your oppressor. I mean, that's just the way it goes. So I used to eat to ward off diseases, but now I eat as a spiritual concept. I only eat when I'm hungry. It's almost as if like I have a deeper relationship within my inner self. Like I have a very, very healthy relationship with food. I don't overeat. I eat when I'm hungry. I know when to stop. Before it was just, okay, I got to eat this healthy thing because I know I don't want to get sick. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the Afrocentric way of reasoning is that everything that our ancestors did was connected to spirituality. And spirituality means by diving into the unseen. The unseen science of a person is the spirituality, and the seen things that you can see is the physical. That's the science part of it. Science means what you can observe. Spirituality means you cannot observe it. But when you can observe it in the physical, that's still linked to the spiritual system that you cannot see. Okay? If I go take a shit right now, right? And I take a dump, you physically see the dump, all right? But there was something that was going on inside of me that you did not see first. My body was releasing the toxins. You don't see the release. You don't see the spiritual system working. Oh, but if you don't see it, you don't think it's working. But when you see it manifest in the physical in the toilet, then you understand, oh, okay, now I see what was going on inside of you. So how a person is on the outside physically and how they reason is a indicator of what their spiritual system is like. It's that simple. Spirituality doesn't mean you sitting there, I'm spiritual. Go to most churches in America, especially that Lakewood church that Osteen preaches at and everybody goes to. They swear by it. None of those people are spiritual. You say, how do you know? They're all unhealthy. You say, that's pretty harsh to say. That's not harsh to say. That's being honest. Most of them are obese. How can you be spiritual when you can't even take care of your temple? Tell me a person that's spiritual but doesn't take care of their temple. It's an oxymoron, folks. It's a contradiction. You're a walking contradiction. You're a walking hypocrite. They're alcoholics. They drink. They don't eat spiritually, let alone eat to ward off diseases. They don't even do what I was doing on a lower level. They think spirituality is going to open the Bible and reading the Bible and quoting scriptures and feeling good. See, we're all being led by our emotions. You get feel-good messages from the pastor and you leave. I'm going to have a blessed week. Based on what? You haven't done anything. You haven't done any homework or research on what you're putting inside your body. You haven't done anything internally to help yourself. Corrupt spiritual system that's predicated on getting money, which is why when you go there, the pastors are asking you for your money, because that's what it's all about. It's about getting your breakthrough and getting your blessing and getting a better job and getting a better car and being successful and being rich. That's not spiritual, folks. That's materialism. It's just put in a capsule called religion just to justify your material endeavor, so you guys can actually look down at the secular man for seeking the same thing you're seeking. Both people are seeking the same damn thing. People who deem themselves deeply religious are seeking the same things that the secular world is seeking. They're just doing it through the vein of spirituality. Alleged spirituality, pseudo spirituality, quasi spirituality. Oh, okay, I'm going to church. I'm going to pray for this, and God's going to give me this, and God's going to give me that. You're doing the same thing. You're just using God to pursue what you want to pursue, and the secular man is just saying, to hell with it. I'm going to just pursue money. You're pursuing money too. Half of the messages are always about success and getting more money. About wealth, about God blessing you. Be patient. Your time is going to come. But don't forget to give the pastor your 10%. You guys are all stuck in that whirlpool of money, but you don't see it. You're blinded by religion. The same way we're being blinded by these foods that we call foods, but are really toxic elements and toxic components that we're putting inside of our bodies, robbing us of the true nutrition that we desperately need. In African culture, or in melanated people's culture, health food keeps you spiritual and melanated. Or in this sense, he said African. Caucasian health food industry usually ruins itself because it is part of their diseased mentality. The natural foods industry is still an unnatural Caucasian racist industry. You say, man, why does this guy keep saying racist? What's so racist about the foods? You'll get it. I'll explain it later. I don't want to explain it now. I'll entice you. He'll explain everything. Everything's going to connect and make sense. That's why when I started reading this, I said we are at war. But we don't see it. It's chemical warfare with the use of nutricide. It's not killing you, like physically. It's killing you mentally and spiritually. And once you've robbed a melanated or African man or a melanated man of its essence, which is really our spirituality, because we're connected to the cosmos, we're connected to nature more than any other race in this world. Once you rob a man of that, once you rob the melanated race of that, then you're done. They're finished. They're as good as dead. You're good as dead. The natural foods industry is still an unnatural Caucasian racist industry. They manufacture supplements and herbs for themselves without African ethno-medicine or ethno-nutritional or ethno-food consciousness. These Caucasians are becoming physically fit with a diseased white supremacist dysfunctional mind. I want you guys to look up the term ethno-food, ethno-nutritional. Look that up. Ethno, E-T-H-N-O, nutritional, ethno-nutritional or ethno-food consciousness. Okay, look that up. These Caucasians are becoming physically fit with a diseased white supremacist dysfunctional mind. So he's big on the mind here, okay? That you can't cure. You can't cure the mind because it's linked to your genetic makeup. It's linked to your DNA. These people are against nature. They're always going to be diseased or dysfunctional. They could function, but they're going to be dysfunctional when it comes to rhythmic flow and having a functional mind as it relates to nature and rhythm. When you're off rhythm and off beat, you are dysfunctional. But we've been under this dysfunctional ruling for so long that we deem the dysfunction functional, and we deem anybody that's being functional as dysfunctional. So the way I eat, people think that I'm dysfunctional because I'm not eating breakfast, lunch, dinner. I'm not going here. I'm not going here. You need to live a little bit. I am living. You're dying. I'm living. There's a difference. I'm eating to live. You're eating to die. And you're telling me that I need to live a little bit? See how backwards we are as a society? Oh, drink a little bit. It won't kill you. Okay. Okay. These Caucasians are becoming physically fit with a diseased white supremacist dysfunctional mind. They are totally capable of continuing nutricide or on another level. It must be historically noted that it was Caucasian Arabs on health foods that had Eastern Africans in the most vicious evil form of chattel enslavement in East Africa, in the most vicious evil form of chattel enslavement in East Africa for over 1,000 years. Then the Caucasians called Eastern Europeans and Western Europeans, and these are the Caucasians that do not live in China or India. Then the Caucasians called Eastern Europeans and Western Europeans were on cooked natural foods when they started the Western African slave trade. This slave trade forcefully brought Africans to North and South America. Slavery and colonialism contributed to the mass murder of at least 200 million Africans. The Caucasians label any Caucasian that has killed 5 people or more, or a mass murderer, and mentally ill. The Caucasians label any Caucasian that has killed 5 people or more as a mass murderer and mentally ill. That's what they say. You know, if you've killed 5 people, they call you, I guess, like a serial killer or mass murderer, right? They then look into the history of the mass murderer and identify the ingredients that created the killer's insane mind. If an African should, or for a melanated person or an African should use Caucasian standards, then by definition, the Caucasian race is one of a mass murderer, killed over 200 million Africans, and is mentally ill. So the author is very clever here. He's taken the definition that the Caucasian has created, and that's what we have to be very cognizant of, right? We have to be very aware of that. What we see happening is that we've been given the information to see what our enemy does. We see what they do, but for some reason we don't see what they do. There's something not connecting. The author used their definition to indict them of what their definition states. I want you to follow me here. Listen to this. He says this: the Caucasians label any Caucasian that has killed 5 people or more, they label you as a mass murderer. And they label you as a person that's mentally ill. Okay? They then look into the history of the mass murderer and identify the ingredients that created the killer's insane mind. So, you know, a lot of these people, when the psychologists, they try to study the mind of a serial killer to see what things happened in their life or what things that they did to bring them to a point where they became mass murderers, right? Okay, that's what Caucasians do. If an African should use Caucasian standards, if we as melanated people would use their standards, then by definition, by the definition that they created, by the definition that the Caucasian created, okay, by definition, the Caucasian race is one of a mass murderer because they've killed over 200 million Africans. And they are mentally ill based on their definition. Not the definition that melanated people came up with, based upon the definition they came up with. So if he used their standards and used their metrics to identify things, it points to them as the mass murderers. It points to them as the ones that are psychotic and mentally ill. Examine the Caucasians' history, and it will reveal the ingredients that shaped their insanity. Ironically, any African or any melanated person that truthfully labels and identifies the Caucasian race as a race of mass murderers that are biochemically and mentally insane will be classified as angry, hostile, full of hate, and or a black racist. That's what you'll be called when you speak the truth. An African or any melanated person with a slave's mentality will verbally attack and character assassinate any African or any melanated person that speaks truthfully about the diseased mind-spirit biochemistry, the spirit biochemistry of the melanated albino and their behaviors the behaviors of whites. So, melanated people that look like you and people that look like me, and I've talked to them. They'll see me. They're like, "Oh man, you being racist, you being this." That's because you still have a mentality of a slave. You still have it's called Stockholm syndrome. You feel better when you acquiesce and oblige to the system that governs you. And anyone that tends to push you out of that system to make you think beneath the surface so you can be above the surface to see exactly what's going on in terms of having like a bird's eye view of seeing the entire panorama of everything, then of course you're going to be deemed a racist because it's easy to name call. It's harder to look at the information and reason with the information and see where it's leading you. See, I don't hate Caucasians. This book is just telling you what they are about. And as I continue to read, you'll see why we are the way we are based upon the war that we're in. If you don't know that you're in a war, then everything that I'm talking about doesn't make sense because you see all of us as one. We're not necessarily as one. We may be one in terms of living in the same ecosystem, but in terms of our thinking mechanics, our spiritual system, our rhythmic system, our frequency, our vibration, the way we connect to nature, we're totally different. One destroys nature. One is part of nature, but the one that's part of nature is ignorant to know that they're part of nature. The people that are part of nature are trying to be like the people that are not part of nature. That causes an inversion, and that's why our people don't think straight. That's why you get to tell, why do our people act like this? Why can't they get along? Why do they act like animals? Why? Because we're not operating off of what we're supposed to operate like. We're operating in an artificial environment that's created by the Caucasian. They can operate in this very well. This is their domain. We have to take back what's ours. And go back to the spirit systems that we once had. Caucasians on health foods murdered, raped, enslaved, and destroyed Africans' lands. Again, a physically fit Caucasian is still a white supremacist. The only thing that an African can gain from a healthy Caucasian is more nutricide. There's a book out there. It's called "How the White Man's Diet Affects Natives of Africa" by Albert Switzer. It can give you insight. The extent of the crime of nutricide is far-reaching. Nutricide not only occurs before birth, but during birth as well. A natural delivery, which is drug-free, allows the umbilical cord to stop pulsating before being cut. Natural birth. We don't do that. Immediately the baby comes out, clip. They clip that umbilical cord. The baby's delivery is in the squatting position. That's naturally the way it is. And the reason why I know this is true, because when you look at the ancient texts that were written, that were they weren't written, but they were decoded by Zachariah Stitchin. He talked about these were the ancient tablets that were written pre-Diluvian, before the flood. This is books that were thousands of years older than the Bible that you guys taught to be like the oldest book. The Bible's nothing but a plagiarized text that takes from every other epic and they curated it. But that's another subject for another day. But if you look at, if you read Zachariah Stitchin's book, it talks about when Adamu and Tiamat. That was their original name. It wasn't Adam and Eve. It was Adamu and Tiamat. When we're talking about the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden is Edin. It was a laboratory of human breeding, the Homo sapiens sapien. This is when we were being created by these extraterrestrial Anunnaki beings that looked just like us. But they were taller, 8-9 feet. The women were like 8 feet tall. The men were like 9 feet tall. These guys were big, strong, blue-black beings. And what they did, they used some of their DNA mixed with the hominins' DNA. There were already creatures on the planet at that time. I'm trying to speed through this just to get to the point. And it talked about when they were in the process of creating humans, that Isis, Ishtar, that's where they get the term generation of Isis. That's where you get the term in the Bible, Genesis, the beginning, generation of Isis. Isis was the one that allowed them to put the egg inside her womb in artificial insemination so she can carry full term, right? And when she had the first man, Adamu, she was in the squatting position. That was the position. That's an Afrocentric tradition that came from our people. Okay, the ones that created us, they have their essence inside of us. Okay, in a squatting position. This book that I'm reading is this book is not doing research like that, but that's what I mean by when you read so much other things, you start to connect the dots and things become connected based upon the context in which you're speaking from. So I'm speaking on the context of childbirth, natural childbirth. Now, that's a foreign concept to many of you guys. Squatting, you're supposed to lay on your back and open your legs and push the baby out. That's what you think. But then again, if you just heard this for the first time, you'd be shocked. But this is not the first time I saw this. I saw this in the book that Zachariah Stitchin wrote when he talked about the Garden of Eden, when they were trying to create humanity. They talked about Isis in a squatting position. That's the way women had babies. They squatted. So the baby's delivery is in a squatting position. Relatives, extended family, and a midwife are present, and the Afrocentric rituals and ceremonies are used. The natural birth allows the normal contractions to help drain the fluid out of the lungs, stimulates the lymph fluid, cerebral spinal fluid, and helps send nourishing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to the child's brain. Drug-induced contractions, because that's what you ladies get. You get the drug-induced contractions. You get the, I forgot the drug that they inject inside of you. Was it oxy? Forgot the name. Drug-induced contractions nutritionally rob the brain, causes a sympathetic response in the child, while a parasympathetic response is normal. Weakens the immune system, pollutes the liver, pancreas, and thyroid, and reduces the electromagnetic and biochemical responses of melanin. So immediately a melanated person is born, your melanin is already being attacked. Now, for the ignorant people out there, they're going to say, oh man, if they do it to everybody. There's a difference between us and them. We're the melanated gods of the planet. So what they do to us, that they deem to be normal, what they do to themselves, the Caucasians, we can't operate like them. We have to operate in what we know is best for our melanin and our biochemistry. We're totally different. We can't do the same thing. We're trying to fit their mode, which is why we don't operate well in this country. We don't operate well in this climate, in this environment, because we're away from our natural practices. A cesarean section or C-section interrupts the synchronic cyclic rhythm of mother and child and causes lung diseases, behavioral problems, slow growth, and or retarded growth. Instead of nutritionally solving the problem, Caucasian doctors add to the problem with their interruption and interference with the bonding and nutritional rites of passage of birthing. So cesarean C-sections are not good. Now, some of you women will be like, well, I had to have mine. No, you didn't have to have it. If you were healthy, you wouldn't have to have it. But see, they start attacking you from the womb. When you were born, you got bombarded with junk food and junk foods. You didn't eat healthy. You didn't eat properly. All right. You didn't exercise. However you lived, it's all induced by foods or fake foods. The fact that you're not able, they tell you that you're not able to have a baby naturally, that you have to get cut open, means that you must have lived a life connected to the Caucasian diet. That's how it is. Oh, there's something wrong, but there's nothing wrong with you. It's just you've been eating what they tell you to eat. You haven't been eating like your ancestors. So when you eat like them, you're gonna get problems. When you eat like your ancestors, you're gonna operate like your ancestors operate. You'll be able to squat and have your baby naturally. Okay, so a cesarean C-section interrupts the synchronic cyclic rhythm of mother and child and causes lung diseases, behavioral problems, and slow growth and or retarded growth. Instead of nutritionally solving the problem, Caucasian doctors add to the problem with their interruption and interference with the bonding and nutritional rites of passage of birthing. Okay? So there are psychological aspects to Caucasian interference with African births. For example, the Caucasian indoctrinates Africans to believe that a baby has a birthday. This is logic. This logic is used to inferiorize women and de-Africanize Africans. And I'm going to stop there about this birthday thing. It'd be amazing what you'll find out about this birthday thing. Everything has been systematically waged against us, people. That's what I want to get you guys to see. These things aren't by coincidence. Everything is by design. We are enemy number one, and they studied us. They know exactly how to break us down. Not physically. They don't want to get into a fight with us. They don't want to get into a war. They want to corrupt us from a biochemical perspective and destroy us from within. And it's working quite well. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Till next time.